McDonald's Big Mac, Burger King's Whopper, and Pizza Hut's Deep Pan Pizza. The American fast food industry has been built on iconic menu offerings that have enticed millions around the globe. In the summer of 2019, another cultural phenomenon took place. The launch of Popeyes chicken sandwich was an inflection point for the fast food company and kicked off what industry insiders have referred to as the chicken sandwich wars.
Chicken has been having a moment for quite some time now. So, it's hard to say that this one sandwich changed the trajectory of QSR chicken, but it certainly changed the trajectory for Popeyes.
Hype around the chicken sandwich and a lighthearted Twitter spat with Chick-fil-A turned the menu item into an overnight sensation. In November 2019, one Popeyes location alone sold more than 3,500 chicken sandwiches in a day. And since then, sales at the company have surged.
I'd say so. It's the next sort of category. Again, goes back to the buckets of chicken that were invented as a home meal solution that travel well. The food, in other words, the food doesn't degrade over time as much as, say, French fries or hamburgers. So it's that next category. It was also created to be shared, like pizza. It's meant to be shared, and so there's a value proposition there for the family.
So can a simple chicken sandwich save a company that once filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection and is trailing two major rivals, Chick-fil-A and KFC? Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen got its start in the early 1970s in New Orleans. Founder Al Copeland grew up poor in the Big Easy, dropped out of high school at 16, and in 1971 opened Chicken on the Run. Despite some early setbacks, Copeland went on to reinvigorate the menu to include spicier Louisiana Cajun-style recipes and eventually reopened the restaurant under the name Popeye's Mighty Good Fried Chicken, after Gene Hackman's character Popeye Doyle in the movie The French Connection. The menu was a hit. Copeland opened a second location a year later, and by the late 1980s, Popeyes ballooned to more than 100 company-owned stores and 620 franchisees. Looking to expand further, in 1989, Copeland gambled big, buying rival Church's Fried Chicken for $400 million, making the new company the second largest fast food chicken restaurant in the U.S., behind chain Kentucky Fried Chicken. But even in the number 2 slot, the chain struggled. The deal eventually soured, and by 1991, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, due in part to the remaining debt from the earlier buyout. Copeland stepped down as CEO and sold his 84% ownership of the company for $31 million. By 1994, the reorganized company, America's Favorite Chicken, had more than 1,800 company-owned and franchised restaurants worldwide. The chain looked to diversify, acquiring Seattle Coffee Company and Cinnabon. The plan was a flop, and within a few years, Popeyes decided to double down on chicken and offloaded both companies, Cinnabon at a major loss. In March 2001, Popeyes made its debut on the NASDAQ, opening up at $19.50 a share. By 2004, the company decided to go all in on Popeyes, so it downsized even more, selling off its Church's Chicken restaurants for $390 million. By 2017, shares had soared to close at almost $79. That same year, Restaurant Brands International, the owner of Tim Hortons and Burger King, added Popeyes to their roster.
What's exciting about Popeyes is we have the opportunity to double our footprint in the U.S. and grow rapidly internationally, so there is no better growth runway in front of a chain than Popeyes.
In 2008, the chain took the name Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen, and at the end of 2019, Popeyes had more than 3,300 venues worldwide, making it the second largest chicken chain by total number of restaurants. For much of Popeye's history, its Louisiana-style menu featured items like fried chicken, chicken tenders, and fried shrimp. But after nearly 50 years in business, in August 2019, the chain rolled out its first ever nationwide chicken sandwich. The launch, the biggest menu change since the restaurant added crawfish 3 decades earlier, and the ensuing social media debate sent shockwaves through the fast food industry. A few days after its debut, Chick-fil-A tweeted a thinly veiled critique. Popeye's response? Y'all good? The tweets were the opening salvo in what industry insiders referred to as the chicken sandwich wars.
As I've seen it dubbed, the tweet that changed the quick service restaurant industry last August. Until then, they were a solidly performing middle of the road chain that certainly was doing all right, but that nobody would say, hey, they're really setting themselves apart.
We were really excited about the launch of the chicken sandwich. We spent a lot of time working on a best-in-class sandwich. The heritage of Popeyes has always been about culinary excellence, and so we felt we had something really special for simple but amazing ingredients: a chicken fillet, a bun, pickles, and mayonnaise, and we were ready for something big. And then we broke the internet in early August, and that created a craze that I haven't seen in more than 2 decades in the business.
While Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, and Shake Shack traded barbs on Twitter, Popeyes nearly doubled its Twitter followers to 180,000. More importantly, the company saw sales surge almost 10% as stores opened more than a year in the third quarter of 2019, compared to less than 1% growth in the same period the year prior. With lines out the door about 2 weeks after the launch, the chain ran out of chicken sandwiches. One analyst estimated that while in stock, Popeyes sold about 1,000 chicken sandwiches per store a day, and that the sandwiches alone accounted for 30% of sales. And it wasn't just Popeyes that saw battlefield gains in the chicken sandwich wars. According to foot traffic analytics performer Placer Labs, over a typical summer weekend, Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, Zaxby's, and KFC receive about 8.3 million visitors. At the peak of the chicken sandwich wars, the chains collectively had over 10 million visitors.
We launched our great tasting chicken sandwich last year in August. Then, as you well know, we had to pull it back because of a number of challenges, including supply. And then we relaunched it in November, and it's been a big part of our menu since then. And what it's done, it's brought a lot of new folks into the business, a lot of folks that hadn't really tried Popeyes or only tries it once every 35, 40 days.
By November 2019, the Popeyes chicken sandwich, made of a chicken breast filet hand batter and breaded in buttermilk coat and served on a brioche bun with either spicy or regular mayo, was back in action.
I think what Popeyes has done is created a sandwich that some people say is better than Chick-fil-A, some people say it's on par with. There's very few people that say it's worse than or significantly worse than Chick-fil-A. And so they backed up their social media firestorm with a really good product that people wanted.
As of August 2020, Popeyes sold more than 203 million chicken sandwiches. The company reported second quarter same-store sales in August 2020 grew nearly 25%. The fast food chicken market in the U.S. is a $32 billion industry dominated by a handful of big players, according to Technomic, including Chick-fil-A, KFC, and Popeyes. In 2019, Chick-fil-A had sales of $12.6 billion, making it not only the largest chicken fast food restaurant in the U.S., but also one of the largest restaurant chains by system-wide sales behind McDonald's and Starbucks. For comparison, Popeyes, the 19th largest U.S. chain, according to Nation's Restaurant News, pulled in $3.8 billion in sales in 2019. Closed on Sundays, Chick-fil-A first opened in Atlanta, Georgia in 1967. That focus has driven sales volume per store at Chick-fil-A significantly higher than rivals KFC and Popeyes, according to analysts.
They're in the $5 to $6 million range per store, whereas a KFC might be in the $1 to $2 million range. I think Popeyes is approaching 1.7 million.
The performance and the way they've been able to grow and outperform the rest of the industry really is beyond precedent in anything that you can look at, with the exception maybe now of at least over the last several years, with the exception of Popeyes and how they've been growing.
KFC was bought by PepsiCo for $850 million in 1986, and in 1997, PepsiCo spun off its then struggling fast food business, launching Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC into a new publicly traded company that would later be renamed Yum Brands. By 2019, KFC had more than 2,400 restaurants, 83% of which were located outside of the U.S. Though it's seen growth internationally in the years leading up to 2020, the company has faced fierce competition in the U.S. and at the same time struggled to reinvent its chicken sandwich. Up to 2011, KFC was the leader in market share in the U.S. limited service chicken segment. A year later, Chick-fil-A was in the top spot. But like other fast food chicken restaurants, KFC has seen sales surge during COVID-19. In July 2020, Yum Brands reported that second quarter U.S. same-store sales at KFC were up almost 7%. And to compete against rivals, the company tested an upgraded version of its chicken sandwich in the summer of 2020, according to industry insiders.
Well, KFC went through a transformation period where the company invested its own capital in turning around the business. They reformulated the menu. They invested in some digital technologies. And really, it's become, during this COVID crisis, it's actually become a hotspot, for lack of a better term.
But it may be Popeyes that has benefited the most. Popeyes reported same-store sales rose 25% in the second quarter, ending June 30th, 2020. During the same period, Restaurant Brands International's other businesses reported same-store sales at Burger King fell 13% and Tim Hortons declined 29%. For decades, burgers have been one of the top choices for consumers at restaurants across the U.S. Americans ordered 8.6 billion burgers in the year ending February 2019, compared with 4 billion chicken sandwiches. But according to the NPD Group, the chicken sandwich is only getting started.
The big story over the past 30 or 40 years has been the rise of chicken consumption. Chicken went in the late 1970s from being a minority meat, at least relative to beef and pork, to now today it's the most consumed meat in the United States.
One reason Americans have consumed more chicken: affordability. Over the past several decades, the availability of chicken has increased dramatically as consolidation in the meat processing industry has allowed companies like Tyson Foods, Pilgrim's Pride, and Sanderson Farms to increase production while at the same time keeping costs low.
So the industry in chicken is much more vertically integrated, which means that you have companies, say like Tyson, that own most of the supply chain. They've been able to improve genetics, improve feed, improve housing situations, and that's really been able to pull down the price of chicken quite considerably.
And while low prices have kept consumers coming back for more, perceptions of health and wellness have led to carnivores choosing white meat over red meat. Organizations like the World Health Organization and the U.S. Department of Health have linked red meat with cancer and heart disease.
Particularly in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of concern among consumers about the consumption of fat and cholesterol, and chicken really benefited from these concerns on the part of consumers because chicken was consumed, perceived as a healthier alternative, a less fatty alternative.
And hamburger chains are looking to take a bite out of Popeyes' newfound success too. In August 2020, Wendy's added a new spicy, crispy chicken sandwich to its $4 value menu, and according to Telsey Advisory Group, fast food giant McDonald's is expected to launch a new crispy chicken sandwich sometime in the next year.
Going forward, McDonald's is looking at this and saying, well, we have a pretty good chicken business as well. So McDonald's isn't just sitting back and letting everybody take share. We expect them to launch a chicken sandwich early next year. They've tested a number of different versions. The last I heard was they've maybe settled on a version that they're going to roll out. So we expect big things from that.
And analysts say chicken chains like Popeyes could face a greater threat from a potentially cheaper and healthier source of protein. New alternative meat products like plant-based meat or the emergence of a lab-based meat products. They are more expensive now, but could someday be cheaper to produce.
One provocative way to think about this is that over the past 20 or 30 years, chicken has displaced beef and pork on our dinner plates by being perceived as more healthy and as by being more affordable. And it's not crazy to imagine that some of these alternative meat products might do to chicken what chicken did to beef and pork. That is, have a perception of healthiness and at least the potential, they're not there yet, but the potential to come in at a more affordable price point.